Alright, so I'm going to talk about Thomas Aquinas. And Thomas Aquinas, he was a theologian back a long time ago in the medieval times, like 1200, around that time period. So he was born in Italy. He was of noble descent, which is important because back then, not everybody went to school like we do now. The only people that were able to get a good education were those that had money or were from noble descent. So he went on to school, went to Roman Catholic school, and he eventually became a part of the Dominican order, which was a faction of the Roman Catholic Church. It was basically a lot of their teachers from the Roman Catholic Church. So that's a little backstory on Thomas Aquinas. Wrapped up real quick. His ideology, obviously, being a part of the Roman Catholic Church, he believed in God, he believed in Jesus. He believed that Jesus came to this earth, died for our sins, to save us from ourselves, save us from eternal hell. So he believed in a monotheistic God. He believed in Roman Catholic teachings and Christian views. He believed that there was a spiritual side of this world, and he believed that God created all of us on the spiritual side. So he believed that God created all of us humans. He created everything in the universe, and it's all connected through him, through one mind, almost an absolute mind, and that God is all knowledge, being all knowledgeable. He knows everything, and if you read the Bible, it kind of goes over that stuff, so it makes sense of where he's coming from in his ideology. So he believed in the spiritual side and the physical side also. So back then, that was kind of a iffy subject because at that time they just taught from a theological perspective. They didn't really get into the realistic or the realism side, but he kind of paved the way to say, okay, so if I walk this line on this side, I've got my theological approach, but on this side of the line, okay, we live in the real world. Like we can reason, we can start to reason about objects and reason about the physical world in order to combine both to be more knowledgeable. So that's super important perspective because it goes right into his educational impact. So his educational impact, one impact was the combination of theology and philosophy, right? So he was a real big proponent of Aristotle and his teachings, and his teaching methods and style. So it's very important to understand his theological approach, like I just done with the line. If there's an imaginary line here, he believed in theological approach. He was it was very important to him, his theology. But he also had this philosophy side because he wanted to be of great mind, and he thought that both of them combined can get us close, it can get us almost to being closer to God and his knowledge. So that's super important because this next point is very important. That leads into this next point, and this is kind of profound. He said that a belief that only God can give us understanding. He said a teacher can speak and a student can listen, but only God can give us understanding, which is very, very profound when you really sit there and think about it and kind of really, really try to grasp that idea and wrap your head around it. To me, it just kind of makes my head hurt. My throat's already hurting because I yelled at a bunch of kids at a football game yesterday. We had a football game, but we got the win. And I told them I loved them after the game, so it's all good. My throat's a little itchy. But get back to it. So his biggest educational impact was his neo-scholasticism or his Thomism. Some Thomism. And that's basically just a combination of theological approach and philosophical approach. A couple criticisms would be, what about the kids that don't believe in Christianity, or what about the kids that don't really are religious or believe in something else? How are we going to be able to use this from his standpoint, from his point of view, since he was so heavily a theologian, he was so heavily involved in Christian teachings. So that would be one criticism. His other criticism would be like, what if, his other criticism would be, okay, well, this is all good in the conscious and in our mind and thinking about all this stuff, but it doesn't really apply to the real world. Like, we can't really go out